The broken pieces of the Morgan mining colony floated silently in space. Chunks of metal and rock drifted by like dead leaves in a pond. In the middle of this graveyard of steel and stone, the UES Thundershield waited quietly. From far away, it looked like just another piece of wreckage. Its lights were off, and its engines were cold. But inside, 200 crew members waited in the dim red glow of emergency lighting, ready for action. Captain James Miller stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, as he looked out at the field of debris through the main viewport. The light from a distant star caught the silver in his hair, making it shine like metal. He had been standing there for hours, barely moving, just watching and waiting. Dark circles under his eyes showed that he hadn't slept much in the past 3 days, but his gaze remained sharp and alert. "Status report," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper even though no one could hear them out in space. Lieutenant Baker, a young officer with steady hands and careful eyes, looked up from her screen. "All systems are still running in silent mode, Captain. The ship's power signature looks just like background radiation. Even if they were looking right at us, they'd think we're just another dead ship." Miller nodded slowly. The plan was working so far. The Thunderchild might look like an old Defender-class warship on the outside, but that was just clever disguise. Under its battle-scarred hull, the ship carried humanity's newest and most powerful weapons. The crew had spent months training with these systems in secret, preparing for this moment. "Engineering report," Miller called out, his eyes still fixed on the viewport. Chief Engineer Tom Wilson's voice came through the comm system, kept low like everyone else's. "Main reactor is in standby, sir. We can power up to full combat status in 30 seconds. The Phantom drive is primed and ready. All weapon systems are hot but dormant." Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Phantom drive was their biggest advantage. A new system that let the ship move in ways that should be impossible. The aliens wouldn't expect it because, as far as they knew, nothing could pass through solid matter. They were wrong. In his mind, Miller went over the plan again. The Dominion fleet would come back. They always did. They liked to return to places they had destroyed to take pictures and make videos for their propaganda. They would show these images to other alien races, bragging about how they had defeated the simple humans again. Their pride would be their downfall. Contact. The word came from Lieutenant Ross at the sensor station. She didn't need to raise her voice. Everyone on the bridge was already listening. Long-range sensors picking up multiple ships entering the system. Energy signatures matched Dominion patterns. Miller straightened his uniform jacket. "Time to arrival. 20 minutes at their current speed." "Sir." The captain turned to face his crew for the first time in hours. In the red emergency lighting, their faces looked like masks, serious and ready. They all knew what was at stake. The Morgan mining colony had been home to 5,000 people before the Dominion attacked. Now those people were refugees on Earth, their homes and work destroyed. This mission wasn't just about military strategy. It was about showing the Dominion that humans weren't easy targets. "Begin final systems check," Miller ordered. "I want everything tested one last time before they get here." The bridge came alive with quiet activity. Fingers moved across screens, running diagnostics and checking weapons. Deep inside the ship, the Nexus combat system, their secret weapon, ran its own checks. The AI system was so advanced that it could think faster than any human or alien computer. It would help them predict every move the enemy made before they made it. Miller walked to his command chair but didn't sit down. He touched the small pocket over his heart where he kept a picture of his daughter. She was studying to be a ship engineer, and he had promised to come back and see her graduate. It was one more reason to make sure this mission succeeded. "Sir," Baker called out, "I'm picking up radiation spikes. The enemy fleet is dropping out of faster than light speed." "Numbers." 50 ships, sir, mostly cruiser class, with 5 destroyer-level vessels." Miller nodded. It was exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The Dominion was so sure of their power that they didn't think they needed to change their patterns. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. "All hands," Miller said into the ship-wide comm, keeping his voice steady and calm. "This is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to show the Dominion why they shouldn't have underestimated humanity. Every one of you volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. I want you to know how proud I am of this crew. No matter what happens next, we're about to make history." He clicked off the comm and turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Ross, are the modified rail guns ready?" "Yes, sir. All 3 banks are loaded with the crystal breaker rounds. First volley is set for maximum impact." The crystal breaker rounds were another secret weapon. The Dominion ships were made of a special crystal material that they thought was unbreakable. But human scientists had figured out exactly the right frequency to shatter it. The aliens were about to learn that their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. "Enemy fleet entering visual range," Baker reported. "They're moving into standard observation formation." Through the viewport, Miller could see them now. The Dominion ships looked like giant crystals floating in space, their surfaces reflecting starlight like diamonds. They were beautiful in their way, but Miller only saw the threat they represented. Each of those ships had helped destroy human colonies. Each one carried weapons that had killed innocent people. "Power readings from the enemy fleet are minimal," Ross added. "Their weapons are cold. They're not expecting any resistance." Miller allowed himself another small smile. "That's their first mistake." He straightened up and raised his voice slightly. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare for phantom drive activation on my mark." The crew moved with quiet efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do. They had practiced these moves thousands of times in simulation. Now it was time to do it for real. "Enemy fleet is in position," Baker reported. "They're starting their recording drones." Miller took a deep breath. Everything they had planned for was about to happen. The next few minutes would decide if humanity could stand up to the Dominion's bullying, or if another human colony would fall. "Nexus Combat System is online and tracking all enemy vessels," the AI's calm voice reported through the bridge speakers. "Combat solutions are plotted and ready. Phantom drive calculations are complete." Miller finally sat down in his command chair, gripping the armrests tightly. "Send final status check to all stations." One by one, the reports came back. Engineering was ready. Weapons were ready. Medical was ready. Every part of the ship was prepared for what was about to happen. The enemy ships were spreading out now, getting ready to record their propaganda videos. They had no idea they were sailing into a trap. Their overconfidence had made them blind. Miller watched the last few pieces of debris float past his viewport. In a few seconds, those scattered rocks and metal chunks would become part of the battlefield. The Nexus system would use them like pieces on a chessboard, turning the Dominion's own destruction against them. "All hands," Miller said quietly, "prepare for combat. We are go for Operation Thunderstrike." He paused for one heartbeat, then gave the order that would start everything. "Phantom drive. Engage." The Phantom drive engaged with a deep hum that vibrated through the Thunderchild's hull. For a moment, everything looked blurry, like the whole ship was underwater. Captain Miller felt a strange tingling in his fingers and toes as the ship phased between normal space and something else. Then, in the blink of an eye, the Thunderchild appeared right in the middle of the Dominion fleet. The enemy ships didn't react for 3 whole seconds. To them, it must have looked impossible. A dead ship suddenly appearing among their perfect formation. Those 3 seconds of surprise were all the Thunderchild needed. "Fire main batteries," Miller ordered, his voice sharp and clear. Lieutenant Ross's fingers were already moving across her weapons console. The rail guns came to life, their special crystal breaker rounds launching at speeds that made them almost invisible to the human eye. The first 3 shots hit their targets before the Dominion ships could even begin to raise their shields. The effect was devastating. The beautiful crystal hulls of the alien ships didn't just break. They shattered like glass windows hit by rocks. pieces of crystal scattered in all directions, sparkling in the starlight. The broken ship started venting atmosphere and crew into space. Direct hits on all primary targets, Ross reported, already lining up her next shots. Enemy ships showing critical damage. The Dominion fleet finally started to respond. Alarm signals flashed between their ships and weapon systems began powering up. But they were still confused, still trying to understand what was happening. Multiple enemy weapons powering up, Baker called from her station. They're trying to coordinate their fire. Miller nodded calmly. Nexus analyzed their firing patterns. The AI's response was immediate. Analysis complete. Predicting 97 possible attack vectors. Calculating optimal evasion course. The captain didn't hesitate. Execute evasion pattern. The Thunderchild moved like a dancer, sliding between enemy shots with impossible grace. Green energy beams from Dominion weapons passed through the space where the ship had been just moments before. The Phantom drive activated again and again, making the ship appear to jump from one spot to another. "Sir," Engineer Wilson's voice came through the comm. "The Phantom drive is performing above expected levels. We can make 3 more jumps than we planned." "Good work, Tom," Miller replied. "Keep her running smooth." The Dominion fleet was in chaos now. Their perfect formation had broken apart as ships tried to track the Thunderchild's movements. Some of them were firing wildly, hoping to hit the human ship by luck. Instead, they were hitting each other. A massive explosion lit up space as one Dominion destroyer's shots hit one of its own cruisers. The crystal ship broke apart in a shower of shining pieces, its crew tumbling out into the vacuum of space. Enemy fleet showing signs of confusion. Baker reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Their communication signals are becoming erratic. Miller watched through the viewport as another Dominion ship tried to target them. "Ross, target that one's engine section. Let's show them what else these crystal breaker rounds can do." The rail guns fired again. This time, the rounds hit the enemy ship's engines. The special frequency of the bullets made the crystal engines vibrate until they cracked. The ship's power failed immediately, leaving it dead in space. "Sir, picking up new energy signatures," Baker called out. 5 enemy ships are charging their faster-than-light drives. "They're trying to run," Ross said, surprise clear in her voice. Miller shook his head. "Not all of them." "Nexus, what's the rest of the fleet doing?" The AI responded instantly. "Remaining enemy vessels are attempting to form a defensive circle. Analysis suggests they are preparing for a concentrated attack." "That's exactly what we want," Miller said. "Get ready for attack pattern Delta." "Wilson, how's our power looking?" "All systems at 90%, sir. The Phantom drive is still performing perfectly." The Dominion ships had finally managed to form their circle. Their weapons were all pointed outward, ready to fire in every direction. They thought they were being clever, leaving no blind spots. They didn't understand that they had just made themselves a perfect target. "Nexus, calculate jump points for maximum damage," Miller ordered. "Calculations complete. Recommended attack pattern will allow us to disable 7 enemy ships with a single action." Miller smiled. "You heard it. Ross, prepare all weapons. Baker, monitor their shield frequencies. Wilson, get ready for maximum power to the Phantom drive." He paused for one breath. "Execute attack pattern Delta." The Thunderchild disappeared again, but this time it was different. The ship jumped rapidly between 7 points, appearing just long enough at each location to fire its weapons before vanishing again. To the Dominion fleet, it must have looked like they were being attacked by 7 ships at once. The results were devastating. Crystal hulls shattered, engines exploded, and weapon systems failed. The defensive circle collapsed as ships tried to escape the attack, crashing into each other in their panic. "Sir," Baker called out, excitement in her voice, "I'm picking up something interesting. The enemy ships are broadcasting distress signals. But they're not just calling for help. They're warning other ships to stay away." Miller nodded. This was even better than they had hoped. The Dominion wasn't just losing the battle. They were losing their confidence. Enemy fleet is down to 27 operational ships, Ross reported. The rest are either destroyed or disabled. The remaining Dominion ships were starting to break formation completely now. Some were still trying to fight, but their shots were wild and uncoordinated. Others were turning away, their engines glowing as they prepared to flee. "Sir," the Nexus system's calm voice announced, "I'm detecting a power surge in the enemy flagship. Analysis suggests they are preparing to broadcast a long-range communication." "Let them," Miller said. "It's time for the next part of our plan. Baker, prepare our message. Ross, target the flagship's communication array. But wait for my order." The Dominion flagship was easy to spot now. It was bigger than the other ships, its crystal hull decorated with complex patterns that showed its importance. Its communication array was powering up, getting ready to tell the rest of the Dominion fleet about what had happened here. Miller watched the enemy flagship for a moment, thinking about all the human colonies that had been destroyed, all the lives that had been lost. This wasn't about revenge. It was about showing the Dominion that humanity wouldn't be an easy target anymore. "Message ready, sir," Baker reported. "Weapons locked on target," Ross added. Miller took a deep breath. "Send the message, then disable their communications." The Thunderchild transmitted a short, simple message directly into the flagship's computers. "This was one ship. We have more." A second later, Ross's shot destroyed the flagship's communication array in a burst of crystal fragments. "Message confirmed received," Baker said. "Their systems accepted our data packet before the array was destroyed." The battle was almost over now. The remaining Dominion ships were retreating in all directions, their perfect formation forgotten. They didn't even try to help their damaged companions. Each ship was only thinking about saving itself. Miller watched them go, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. The Thunderchild had won a great victory today, but he knew the war wasn't over. Still, they had done what they set out to do. They had shown the Dominion that attacking human colonies wasn't safe anymore. "Stand down from battle stations," he ordered. "Wilson, start damage assessment. Ross, keep weapons ready just in case. Baker, start collecting all the sensor data. Earth Command will want every detail of what happened here." As his crew began their work, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The debris field was different now, filled with broken pieces of crystal ships instead of mining colony wreckage. It was a message written in destruction. Humanity was ready to fight back. The remaining Dominion ships regrouped at a safe distance, just within range of the Thunderchild's long-range sensors. They had lost almost half their fleet, but they still had numbers on their side. More importantly, they had lost their fear. Now they were angry. "They're changing their tactics," Baker said, watching her sensor readings carefully. "The surviving ships are forming into smaller groups. 3 ships per group, spread out in attack formation." Miller studied the enemy positions on his command screen. The Dominion fleet was trying to be smarter now. Instead of one big target, they had become many small ones. They thought this would make it harder for the Thunderchild to use its phantom drive effectively. "Nexus, analyze their new formation," Miller ordered. "What are they planning?" The AI took less than a second to respond. "Enemy fleet has adopted a multi-vector attack strategy. They will attempt to overwhelm our defenses by attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Probability of successful defense using standard tactics, 42%. "Good thing we don't use standard tactics," Miller said. "Wilson, how's our power looking?" The chief engineer's voice came through with a hint of pride. "Main reactor is still running strong, sir. The phantom drive is actually working better than in our tests. The real-world combat data is helping it learn and adjust." That was exactly what Miller wanted to hear. Every minute of this battle was making their ship smarter and more efficient. The Nexus system was learning, adapting, becoming more powerful. But they had to survive long enough to use that advantage. "Sir," Ross called out from the weapons station. Enemy ships are powering up their main guns. Energy readings are off the charts. They're overcharging their weapons. The Dominion ships' crystal hulls were glowing now, channeling power into their weapons. They were preparing to fire everything they had, trying to overwhelm the Thunderchild with sheer firepower. Miller's mind raced through their options. The Phantom Drive could avoid some of the shots, but not all of them. They needed something else, something unexpected. His eyes fell on the debris field around them. Broken pieces of crystal ships floating in space. An idea formed in his mind. "Nexus, can you calculate the exact positions of all the crystal debris?" he asked. "Affirmative. All debris positions tracked and monitored." "Good. Plot me a course that uses those debris pieces as shields. When their shots hit the crystal fragments, I want the energy to reflect back at them." There was a pause as the AI calculated. Course plotted. "Warning. This maneuver will require precise timing and positioning. Recommended solution includes using the Phantom Drive to move debris into optimal positions before enemy weapons fire." "Do it," Miller ordered. "Wilson, give the Phantom Drive everything you can. Ross, be ready with counterfire the moment their shots miss us." The Thunderchild began to move, but not to escape. Instead, it darted between pieces of debris, the Phantom Drive reaching out to touch broken crystal ships and move them slightly. To the Dominion fleet, it must have looked like the human ship was dancing through the wreckage. But each move had a purpose. "Enemy weapons at 90% charge," Baker reported. "They're about to fire. All hands, brace for maneuver," Miller called over the ship-wide comm. Then, more quietly, "Nexus, execute defense pattern." The Dominion ships fired all at once, their weapons releasing beams of energy so bright they looked like new stars being born. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. But the Thunderchild was already moving. The ship phased through space, appearing exactly where the Nexus system had calculated. As the energy beams approached, they hit the carefully positioned crystal debris. The crystal fragments didn't break this time. Instead, they reflected the energy, sending it bouncing back toward the Dominion ships. The alien fleet hadn't expected this. Their own weapons' fire hit their crystal hulls, making them vibrate at exactly the wrong frequency. 3 ships shattered instantly. 4 more lost power and began drifting. The rest scattered, trying to avoid their own reflected shots. "Direct hits confirmed," Ross reported, her fingers flying over her weapons console. Enemy ships showing severe damage from their own weapons. But Miller saw something else happening too. The Nexus system was collecting data from every shot, every movement, every reaction. It was learning how the Dominion ships moved, how their weapons worked, how their crews thought. The longer the battle went on, the more the AI learned. "Sir," Wilson called from engineering, "the Phantom Drive is picking up new tricks. It's found ways to phase through things we didn't think were possible. The Nexus system is rewriting its own protocols." That was the true power of their ship. It wasn't just fighting, it was evolving. Each engagement made it stronger, smarter, more capable. The Dominion fleet was fighting against an enemy that got better every minute. "Enemy ships regrouping again," Baker announced. "They're trying something new. Multiple ships are linking their power systems together." Miller watched as the remaining Dominion ships formed new patterns. They were connecting their crystal hulls, sharing energy between ships. It was an impressive display of coordination, but it was also exactly what the Thunderchild wanted them to do. "Nexus, analyze their power links," Miller ordered. "Find me a weak point." "Analysis complete," the AI responded. "Detecting vulnerability in power transfer nodes. Recommended attack vector calculated." The Dominion ships had finished linking together. Energy flowed between them like lightning, making their crystal hulls pulse with light. They thought they were making themselves stronger. Instead, they had created a perfect chain of targets. "Ross, target the primary power node with crystal breaker rounds," Miller ordered. "Wilson, prepare for emergency power to shields. This is going to be bright." The Thunderchild fired a single shot, The special round hit exactly where the ship's power systems connected. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the energy flowing between the Dominion ships went wild, feeding back through their connected systems. The chain reaction was spectacular. Each ship's power system overloaded the next one in line. Crystal hulls cracked and shattered as too much energy poured through them. The linked ships fell apart one after another, like a row of falling dominoes made of light and crystal. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat," Baker reported, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. "Their remaining ships are breaking formation and running in all directions." Miller watched the Dominion ships flee, their perfect tactics forgotten. They had started this battle thinking they were facing a simple human warship. Now they were running from something they couldn't understand. A ship that learned from every attack, that turned their own strength against them, that fought in ways that should be impossible. "Stand down to yellow alert," Miller ordered. "Wilson, start checking all systems. I want to know everything the Phantom Drive learned during that fight. Ross, keep weapons hot just in case they try to come back. Baker, start compiling all the combat data. The Nexus system needs every bit of information we can give it." As his crew carried out their orders, Miller looked out at the battlefield again. The space around them was filled with floating crystal fragments that sparkled like stars. Each piece was a reminder of what one ship and its crew could do when they refused to give up. The Thunderchild hadn't just won a battle, it had changed the way space combat worked forever. The Dominion would be back, probably with bigger fleets and new weapons. But they would never again make the mistake of thinking humans were easy targets. The dance was far from over, but now everyone knew who was leading it. The Dominion Fleet Admiral was desperate now. Nothing in their combat manuals covered this situation. One human ship had destroyed nearly 2/3 of their fleet, and worse, it was fighting in ways that made no sense. The Admiral gave new orders. All remaining ships were to fire at everything that moved. They would fill space with so many energy beams that nothing could dodge them all. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Baker watched the enemy's wild shooting with growing concern. "Sir, they're firing without any pattern now. Just spraying weapons fire everywhere." Miller nodded calmly. He had expected this. When smart enemies got scared, they often became dangerous enemies. "How many of their shots are hitting their own ships?" "At least 1 in 3, Captain. They're doing more damage to themselves than we are now." The Nexus system's voice joined the conversation. "Analysis of enemy fire patterns complete. They have abandoned tactical doctrine in favor of saturation fire. This presents both danger and opportunity." Miller leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain." "Their random firing pattern makes individual shots harder to predict, but it also means their fleet's movements have become predictable. They are remaining stationary to maintain maximum fire coverage. This makes their positions easy to calculate." That was exactly what Miller had been waiting to hear. The Dominion fleet had fallen into the oldest trap in combat. They had let fear overcome their training. Now it was time to show them why that was a mistake. "Wilson," Miller called to engineering, "what have we learned about their crystal hulls?" The chief engineer's voice was excited. "Something interesting, sir. Every time they hit each other, the crystal fragments give off a specific energy pattern. The Nexus system has been analyzing it. We think we can use their own shots to create a kind of chain reaction." Miller smiled. This was why humans were still winning wars even against more advanced enemies. They didn't just use their technology. They found new ways to use it that no one had thought of before. "Ross," he called to his weapons officer, "can you target specific pieces of debris?" "Yes, sir," she replied instantly. The targeting computer can track individual crystal fragments as small as a finger. "Good, because we're about to try something new." Miller straightened in his chair. "All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do has never been attempted before. It might look crazy, but I need everyone to trust the plan and do exactly what they're told." The Nexus system had already understood what Miller was thinking. Captain, I have calculated the optimal positions for crystal fragment deployment. Recommend using phantom drive to position debris for maximum chain reaction effect. Do it, Miller ordered. Wilson, give the phantom drive everything it can handle. Ross, be ready to fire on my mark. Baker, track every piece of debris and every enemy shot. We need to time this perfectly. The Thunderchild began to move again, but this time it wasn't dodging. Instead, it was using the phantom drive to grab pieces of broken crystal ships and move them into precise positions. The Dominion fleet kept firing, not understanding that each wild shot was helping to set up their own destruction. Sir, Baker called out suddenly. 3 enemy ships just took critical damage from their own fire. Their power cores are going unstable. Miller saw the opportunity immediately. Ross, target those unstable cores. Wilson, prepare for emergency jump. Nexus, calculate blast radius and safe distance. The Thunderchild fired 3 precise shots. Each one hit an already damaged power core, causing it to overload. The explosion sent waves of energy washing across space, making the carefully positioned crystal fragments vibrate at exactly the right frequency. What happened next was like watching a row of mirrors break in slow motion. The energy from the explosions hit the crystal fragments, which reflected and amplified it. Each piece of crystal sent the energy on to the next piece, growing stronger each time. When the energy reached the Dominion ships, their crystal hulls couldn't handle the resonance. Ships began breaking apart all across the battlefield. Some shattered instantly, while others cracked slowly, pieces falling away like ice breaking in spring. The Dominion crews never had a chance to understand what was happening to them. Multiple enemy ships breaking up, Baker reported, her voice full of awe. The chain reaction is spreading faster than they can move. The Nexus system was recording everything, learning from each new explosion, each new crack, each new pattern of destruction. It was turning the battle into data, analyzing every detail to become even more effective. Sir, Wilson called from engineering. The Phantom Drive is picking up new energy signatures we've never seen before. The Nexus system says it's learning how to phase through energy fields, not just solid matter. That was impossible according to every physics textbook in human space, but Miller had stopped believing in impossible things the moment they'd built this ship. Can we use it? Already working on it, sir, Wilson replied. The Nexus system is rewriting its own protocols in real time. It's like the ship is evolving while we fight. On the main screen, Miller watched as the Dominion fleet fell apart. Their formation was completely broken now, ships trying to flee in every direction. But they couldn't escape the chain reaction their own weapons had started. The battlefield had become a trap, and they were caught in it. Enemy Admiral's ship is transmitting, Baker announced. They're trying to surrender, sir. Miller shook his head. No, not yet. They need to understand exactly what they're dealing with. He paused for a moment. Nexus, can you get us inside their flagship shields? Affirmative, the AI replied. New Phantom Drive protocols allow for energy field penetration with 78% success rate. Do it. Ross, prepare to fire a warning shot. Just close enough to crack their bridge viewport. The Thunderchild vanished and reappeared inside the Dominion flagship shields, something that should have been absolutely impossible. They were so close that the crew could see the alien admiral standing at his command station, his crystal-like face showing an expression of pure shock. Ross fired one shot. It hit just to the left of the flagship's main viewport, sending a small crack spreading across the crystal hull. The message was clear. We could destroy you anytime we want. Now they can surrender, Miller said quietly. The Dominion flagship's signal came through clear and desperate. They were surrendering not just their ship, but their entire fleet. More importantly, they were sending out a warning to all other Dominion forces. Do not engage this human vessel under any circumstances. Sir, Baker said, checking her readings, I'm picking up something strange from the debris field. The crystal fragments. They're still resonating. The Nexus system says they're forming some kind of network. Miller understood then. They hadn't just won a battle. They had discovered a whole new way of fighting. The crystal debris field had become a weapon, a communication network, and a defense system all at once. The Thunderchild had turned the Dominion's own technology against them in ways they had never imagined possible. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every piece of data, every energy reading, every resonance pattern. Humanity just changed the rules of space combat, and I want to make sure we remember how we did it." As his crew worked to document their victory, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The space around them was filled with shattered crystal ships and floating debris, all of it glowing slightly from the energy of the chain reaction. It was beautiful in a strange way, like a field of broken stars. The Dominion had started this fight thinking they were hunting a wounded animal. Instead, they had forced humanity to evolve, to become something new and dangerous. The Thunderchild wasn't just a ship anymore. It was the first of a new kind of weapon, one that learned and grew stronger with every battle. And this was only the beginning. The last Dominion ship vanished into faster-than-light speed, leaving behind only scattered pieces of crystal and fading energy readings. On the Thunderchild's bridge, the crew watched it go in silence. They had done something that would be remembered for generations. They had changed the course of the war in a single battle. "Status report," Miller ordered, his voice tired but satisfied. Baker checked her screens carefully. "No enemy ships remaining in sensor range, sir. The ones that could still run have jumped away. The rest," she gestured at the debris field around them. 17 completely destroyed, Ross added from her weapons station. 22 disabled or abandoned. The rest escaped, but most of them have serious damage. Out of 50 ships, only 6 got away in fighting condition." Miller nodded slowly. The numbers were even better than they had hoped, but that wasn't the most important part. "Wilson, what's the status of our special systems?" The chief engineer's voice was excited despite his exhaustion. "Sir, you're not going to believe this. The Nexus system didn't just learn during the battle. It's still learning. It's analyzing everything that happened, finding new ways to use the Phantom Drive, discovering things about crystal technology that the Dominion probably doesn't even know." That was exactly what Earth Command had hoped would happen. The Thunderchild wasn't just a warship. It was a research mission, a way to learn everything they could about Dominion technology and tactics. Every second of the battle had been recorded, every piece of data stored for analysis. "Sir," Baker called out suddenly, "I'm picking up something strange from the disabled Dominion ships. Their crews, they're abandoning ship. Escape pods are launching." Miller watched as small crystal pods ejected from the damaged ships. The Dominion crews were running away from their own vessels, afraid that the ships might explode or break apart at any moment. They had lost faith in their supposedly unbreakable technology. "Life support status on those pods?" Miller asked. "All functioning," Baker replied. "They have enough air and power for at least a week. Rescue ships will find them long before they run out of supplies." Miller smiled slightly. This was another message to the Dominion. Humans didn't just destroy their enemies. They made sure the survivors were safe. It was a kind of strength that the Dominion had never understood. "Sir," the Nexus system's calm voice announced, "I have completed my analysis of the battle data. Would you like to hear my conclusions?" "Go ahead," Miller said, curious about what the AI had learned. The Dominion fleet's defeat was not primarily due to our technological advantages. Their main weakness was their inability to adapt to unexpected situations. They relied too heavily on pre-planned tactics and assumed that their technology made them invulnerable. When faced with an enemy that could learn and change strategies during battle, they were unable to respond effectively. That was an insight that went beyond just this battle. It explained why humanity, despite having less advanced technology, had been able to resist the Dominion for so long. Humans were good at adapting, at finding new ways to use whatever tools they had. "Wilson," Miller called to engineering, "what's the status of the Phantom drive?" "Better than new, sir," the engineer replied. "All that practice jumping around during the battle helped us fine-tune it. The Nexus system says we can now phase through things we didn't even think were possible before. And that's not all. We learned something amazing about how the Dominion's crystal technology works." Miller leaned forward in his chair. "Tell me. Their ships aren't just made of crystal, sir. The whole crystal structure is like one big computer. Every piece is connected to every other piece. That's why our crystal breaker rounds worked so well. We weren't just breaking their hulls. We were disrupting their whole command and control system. That was valuable information. If every piece of Dominion crystal technology was connected, it meant their entire fleet might share the same weaknesses. One discovery here could lead to victories across the whole war." "Captain," Baker interrupted, "incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Miller straightened his uniform. "Put it through to my station." Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen. The old admiral looked tired but happy. "Captain Miller, we've been watching everything through the quantum relay. Outstanding work. You've given us more than just a victory. You've given us hope." "Thank you, sir," Miller replied. "But I should tell you, this ship has exceeded all our expectations. The Nexus system has learned things about Dominion technology that could change everything." "So we've seen." The admiral smiled. "That's why I'm calling. Earth Command has made a decision. The Thunderchild was supposed to be a prototype, a test to see if our ideas would work. But after what you've shown us today, we're expanding the program. We're building more ships like yours." Miller felt his heart beat faster. "How many, sir?" "As many as we can. Every shipyard in human space is getting the plans right now. We're calling them the Phantom class. Each one will have its own Nexus system, able to learn and adapt just like yours. And every discovery your ship makes will be shared with all of them." That was the best news Miller had heard since the war began. One Thunderchild had been enough to destroy a Dominion fleet, a whole fleet of ships like it, each one learning and improving with every battle, would be unstoppable. "There's more," the admiral continued. "We're picking up transmissions from all over Dominion space. The survivors of your battle are spreading the word. Some of their frontier colonies are already talking about independence. They're starting to think that maybe the Dominion isn't as powerful as they thought." Miller understood what that meant. The Thunderchild hadn't just won a battle. It had started a chain reaction that could break the Dominion's power forever. All because one ship and its crew had proved that humanity couldn't be pushed around anymore. "Your orders," Admiral Chen said, "are to come home. We need the Thunderchild's data to help build the new ships. But don't take a direct route. Visit a few Dominion-controlled systems on the way. Let them see you. Let them wonder if you're coming for them next." "Yes, sir," Miller replied. "We'll make sure they remember us." After the admiral's face disappeared from the screen, Miller turned to his crew. They all looked tired but proud. They had done something that would be remembered for generations. "Plot a course for Earth," he ordered. "But let's take the scenic route. I want every Dominion ship in this sector to see us coming. I want them to remember what one human ship can do." As the Thunderchild's engines powered up, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The debris field was still there, crystal fragments spinning slowly in space. But it wasn't just wreckage anymore. It was a monument. Every broken piece of crystal was a reminder that humanity had found its strength. The ship turned toward home, its phantom drive humming with power. They had started this mission hoping to prove that humanity could fight back. Instead, they had proved something much more important, that humanity could win. Behind them, the broken Dominion fleet hung in space like a warning. Ahead of them lay a future where humans didn't have to hide or run. The Thunderchild had shown the way. Now it was time to make sure everyone knew that the rules of war had changed forever.